Paul Mascetta here with InfluenceMaster.com, and today I wanted to talk about the law of obligation and reciprocity. And what this law tells us is that if we do a good deed or a goodwill gesture for someone, they will feel obliged to reciprocate and return the favor for us at some point in the future. It's an extremely powerful law in influence and persuasion that people have been using for thousands of years. And the way it works is pretty simple. You do a favor for somebody, or you do a goodwill gesture for somebody with the hope that sometime down the road, when you need compliance or you need cooperation from them, they will reciprocate because you helped them at some point. Sounds pretty logical, and a lot of times it works, but there's also a lot of times where it doesn't work. And there are two main reasons why it can backfire on you and not work out the way you had hoped. The first is if you do a goodwill gesture for somebody that they don't find to be valuable. So if you buy someone tickets to a football game that has absolutely no interest in sports and think that you've done them a favor and hope that at some point down the road you can ask for a favor in return, chances are that you might not actually get that favor because they don't perceive what you gave them to be valuable, okay? The second reason why this can backfire is the amount of time that you let pass before you ask for your favor in return. Now, many years ago, there was a researcher by the name of Flynn who wanted to find out the answer to this question. You see, she believed that the perception and the value of the favor changes between the favor doer and the recipient as time goes on. She believed that the recipients of the favor have a higher value initially, which decreases as time goes on, whereas the favor doers don't place that much value on the favor in the beginning, but begin to increase value as time goes on. So two different things going on there. She wanted to see if her hypothesis was correct, so she conducted an experiment on airline employees. Airline employees are typically do a lot of favors for one another in terms of covering each other's shifts. She asked half the employees to remember a time when they had covered a shift for someone, and she asked the other half of the employees to recall a time when someone had covered a shift for them. And just as she suspected, the recipients of the shift cover, the recipients of the favor, didn't really find it to be such a great favor as time went on, whereas the people who had covered the shifts felt that they did an extremely great deed and went out of their way for somebody. Now, there are a lot of different reasons why something like this could happen. My guess is that most people like to see themselves in the best light possible. I mean, it's human nature that when things go right, people like to take the credit, and when things go wrong, they like to blame external sources. In a case like this, the favor doer really believes that they went out of their way and made a difference in somebody else's life, and they feel that they should be rewarded. And as time goes on and that doesn't seem to happen, it only grows bigger and bigger and bigger because the person is looking for the biggest way possible to justify why they helped out this person and why they deserve something in return. Whereas the recipient of the favor believes that they were capable of doing it on their own and they probably didn't need as much help as they thought they did. So the perception of the favor in each person's mind changes as time goes on. And this can lead to a pretty bad situation because now you have a person that received the favor that really isn't placing too much value on it, and a person who did the favor who's increasing the amount of value that they put on the favor that they did for someone. And what usually happens is you have two people in two polar opposite directions, and the law of reciprocity begins to crumble and fall, and it doesn't work the way you hoped it would, okay? So there are three tips that I want to give you today when you use the law of obligation and reciprocity, okay? The first one is make sure that you know your target and what they find to be valuable, and always make sure that whatever you're offering them is of true value to them, and it is something that can positively impact their life. You don't want to offer something to someone that they're going to have little to no use for and then not going to find a reason to not want to reciprocate to you in the future. So that's rule number one. Rule number two is when you do a favor for someone, expect a favor in return in the shortest amount of time possible. Now, I know there are some people out there that might think that that sounds kind of shallow, and they may be saying things like, when you do something for somebody, you shouldn't expect anything in return. And that's fine if you're doing a true goodwill gesture for a friend or a family member that you simply want to help out. But if you are using the law of obligation and reciprocity in the sphere of influence, which is something that has been used for thousands of years in terms of barter and helping people out, this is the way you do it. Do not let a long period of time pass before you ask for your favor in return. It will only hurt you, okay? And the third thing that you want to do is mention the favor when you're doing the favor. So you might want to say something like, hey, I'm glad to help you out because I know that if the tables were turned, you would do the same for me. Now, if you find yourself in a situation where you have to wait a little bit of time before you can ask for your favor in return for whatever reason, maybe it just can't be done at that particular time, or you have to put it off until a certain date. If you need to let a certain amount of time pass before you ask for your favor in return, you can give them a gentle reminder when you ask for it. So you don't want to say something like, hey, remember that time I bought you tickets to the Jets? Well, now it's payback time. That's not the way you want to go about it. What you would want to say is something like, hey Bob, remember that email that I sent you with that information or that report that I sent you? Did you find it to be useful? Did it help you out? Great, I'm happy that it did. I was wondering now if you could help me out with something, and then present your request. Those are the 3 rules that you want to follow when using the law of obligation and reciprocity to ensure that it works the best way possible. Once again, I'm Paul Mascetta here with InfluenceMaster.com, wishing you a great day.